Steve Hauck is in studio. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Okay, describe this video that shows the fiery crash in New Jersey.
Right.
And then what happens? Describe it. And why? And it is quite a fire.
Okay, so it started out as a pursuit with this gentleman and the police. My understanding is it was a lengthy pursuit. He crashed into a car. He continued. Shots were fired at the vehicle. And then he struck a second vehicle, which is what you see in the crash, in the video. So he strikes a second vehicle. Both cars catch fire. The car he strikes, the occupant who was on his way home from work jumps out on fire. You see on the video, he goes to the ground and he's rolling.
Yeah.
You know, like we're all taught when we're little, stop, drop, and roll.
Okay, I see him now.
He's rolling to try to get the fire out.
Yeah.
At one point, he sits up, still partially on fire, and you see the officers come up, and I'll let you draw your own conclusions by watching
it right
that.
now.
You'll see what happens.
So the officers have guns on him right now.
They do.
Now this is the guy not involved.
Totally not involved. Totally innocent.
Kicking the crap out of him.
Yep.
They're all around him, kicking him. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, totally innocent bystander, literally on his way home from work.
Watch here. Now they're if I go back a little further, you'll see them coming up. You'll watch. There he is on fire, trying to get the fire out. Here come the cops now with guns, and then they begin kicking him. Just start kicking him.
Oh my!
Like you'd see in a mob movie. I hate to say it. I could see this in The Sopranos. We saw it all the time, right? Somebody
I think there was a scene in Goodfellas where
now they're dragging him.
So did they believe that he was the person driving the car in the pursuit?
So some of this is what I've read, and I'll tell you what I've read, and I'll tell you what my opinion on some things are.
First of all, is there ever a point where a man who's down on his hands and knees like that should ever be kicked like that by police?
Okay, that's part of it.
Okay.
It's possible.
Okay.
Certainly certainly not likely.
Right.
And it would have to be an extreme situation.
So
well, let's say in this situation, they suspect that not this guy. Obviously this was mistaken identity.
Right.
They thought this was the driver.
This is, by the way, cash for that man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
sure.
I'm sure that's part of it, but I think it's a bigger issue than just that. But
I agree.
But let's all be honest. They thought he was the driver.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a scenario in which they fired at the vehicle, now did they fire it because they thought he had a gun and he fired at them? So let's for a second play devil's advocate and think that the officers that are there believe that this man is armed.
Yeah.
And he's sitting up on the sidewalk. And they're, I don't know, let's make assumptions they're yelling commands at him. Get down on the ground, get down on the ground, get down on the ground.
Sit up.
They think he's armed. He's not moving. He's not getting down on the ground.
Of course, he was just burned terribly.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And again, let's play devil's advocate for a second and assume that they don't see that.
Yeah.
Because it's now you can see the fire is mostly out.
Right. So there's a possibility that the police officer never saw him on fire. That is possible.
It's possible.
Yep.
So the first, sort of kick that's applied to him to put him down on the ground. I'm not saying that you would want to do this on a regular basis, but in extreme situations.
Versus being shot.
If he was armed or you believed he was armed
and
he's not following commands, you do the first sort of knockdown kick. But I read some of the articles, and honestly, I was really rather disturbed because the representative from the police union went so far as to say that he thinks the officers should be heralded because they were saving a burn victim and they were dragging him to safety and they were trying to put the fire out. And
you're somebody who's always said the video doesn't show everything.
It doesn't, but I don't know how you could draw that conclusion.
A group of men continuously kicking him.
Yeah, I just don't see how. I mean, first of all,
what were they kicking out the flames?
That's, I think, what he's saying.
Wow.
First and foremost is preservation of life. That's our job. Preservation of life.
First, I have to say that's what a union is supposed to do.
I get it.
I hate to say that, but they stand up no matter what.
But they're still police officers, and first and foremost, it's preservation of life.
Yeah.
And upholding the law, regardless of who it is.
Right.
And to just say blanket, and that's part of the problem. And we've had this discussion on and off the air, is that it's important that each profession, especially law enforcement, because your job is
held
so important,
to a higher standard.
Is absolutely held to a higher standard, and within the community, we need to sort of police ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we have people doing the job that shouldn't be doing it, then they got to do something else.
Yeah. Well, that is just horrific to watch.
Especially when you find out the guy's just on his way home from work.
Yeah.
And he's out, and he's in bad shape. He's he's got burns all over his body.
Burns,
so
and on top of it, you're being kicked, so you have additional injuries on top of that.
The whole thing is just. Really
I got to
watch
this again. I don't think it's as bad as I think you guys. My take is not as negative as you.
Well, hold on, because I'm looking at it again.
There's another video that's that
you're watching. You got to watch the
that
second
they bring
video.
in close. It's the same video, but I'm sure somebody digitally sort of enhanced it and looks at it. It's pretty disturbing.
I feel like he only got kicked twice.
How long ago did this incident happen?
2 days ago.
Oh, it happened just 2 days ago. So is the guy, the victim here, is he out speaking about this, or he's still in a hospital?
ICU. Yeah. So there's a couple of things I'd like to see first. You know me, I'm not one to jump to conclusions. I like to see all the facts come out. Does Jersey City, is anybody there wearing dash cam or body camera?
Yeah.
So is there a close-up video of this? Is there something in that video we're not seeing? In other words, is he, his hands in his pocket? There's things that maybe that are going on here that would maybe perhaps justify some of this.
And it does seem at one point that the officer that did the initial kick and then another kick, it does seem that he's trying to kick out flames after that.
Absolutely.
So that I do see.
But I will tell you that having been involved in numerous pursuits in my career, there is a lot of adrenaline that's flowing in a pursuit, and I never had one that ended like that.
Right,
where essentially you got Armageddon going on in the street there.
Yeah, that's what it looks
I can tell you, there's an awful lot of adrenaline that's flowing, and especially if you think that you were fired at. Yeah, I could see how it could get out of hand real quickly there. But again, obviously, that's got to be vetted out to see.
We'll
what
post that video up on the website in a few minutes here. I want to take a break. Andrew's going to do a quick news update. We'll come back. And I want to talk about your take on Chief Brooks.
Okay.
And the situation that involves fire, how this could have implications on fire and police officers in Utica.
Sure.
We'll get into that coming up. Okay, Chief Brooks, what do you think?
Well, I'm like everybody else. I just, watch TV, listen to your show, and I've watched.
And you're out of the department now,
right? Absolutely. So it's not like I have any inside information, but I guess sort of my take on it is that having worked in the city for as long as I did, and sort of seen the ebb and flow of the way things sort of work, and I worked 4 different mayors when I was there, so. You never like to see, and unfortunately, I've had to be a part of sort of escorting people out of City Hall, which is not a pleasant thing. It happens because you have a changeover and people aren't always.
Did you ever have to escort Mayor Palmieri out? Because he was escorted once.
I was there that day, but I wasn't involved in that particular aspect of it.
Lucky for you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And honestly, the times we had to do it's not fun. It's
not personal.
You feel bad for everybody involved.
You're not doing it because you want to do it. It's something you have to do.
Right. But
it doesn't have to be done, but you don't have you're not in the decision.
No, you're just
process.
Called there, right? Absolutely.
That's what I'm trying to say.
But I guess what you don't expect is a 40-year employee, especially a chief of one of the biggest departments in the city,
who at this point you would have to call a Utica legend. This is a guy that you have to, right?
Yeah.
He's very well respected
he's bigger
in the
than
community
life.
and within the agency itself.
Yes.
I've had many opportunities to work with Russ over the years, and he's always been totally professional and pleasant to work with.
And you can think about cases where he's carrying a baby out. You have this bigger than life vision of whether it's 9/11 or some of these fires, and he's always that very, very emotional but collected force that stands there the next day or on TV or on radio and talks about it.
He's not only a great representative of the fire department, but the city as a whole.
As a whole,
no
doubt about it.
He's well respected within the chiefs community of fire chiefs across the country and within the state. And one of the things I was thinking about, because I know we've talked about this, is those firemen that went to 9/11. We can look back at it now and say, yeah, they went there and did their part, but we got to try to think back to when they went, which was, I think, the day after. They still didn't know exactly what was going on. They didn't know if there was going to be another attack there. if Ground Zero now was going to be, it's one of those deals where now you bring all the emergency people in and then you attack them. So there was a lot of things going on that these guys went and really risked a lot of things. They left their family, didn't know when they were going to come back, didn't know what they were going to expose. And even the federal government sort of dropped the ball when it came to recognizing the illnesses associated with 9/11.
Ask a Vietnam veteran about that. It's an Agent Orange, and there are still veterans that cannot connect their illness to the war and not getting the funds that they deserve. We have a history of
but finally it seems that the federal government has recognized, we've got all these major illnesses and people are dying.
There's a connection.
So here's what it is, and you've got this organization that says,
and here the World Trade Center Health Organization is clearly
my understanding is they're the experts. That's what they do,
and they're certifying that Chief Brooks did receive. So again, but this goes back to, if you recall, there was a police contract a while back that was. Because I've talked to some police officers that say, we can get injured out there, and our family loses its health coverage.
Right.
Which is why it exists, I think. Health insurance.
That's and I know you're out of that now, but a lot of people your age are out, and I understand there's a lot of pressure being a police officer, but I think a lot of people got out. Just I think there was an uneasy feel. I don't know.
The nature of the job.
Yeah.
Police and fire is the same way. It's a dangerous job.
Yeah.
So your likelihood of getting injured compared to, say, other jobs is very high.
Yeah.
And that's why you have a lot of sick time, and you have it can be accrued over the years because you can get hurt on one incident and be out for a year.
Yeah.
And I've seen lots of officers, young guys that came on the job, got hurt early in their careers and never came back.
Right.
Whether it be a car accident or
when
fell.
you don't have the solid insurance plan in place that you're going to be taken care of, it would make you say, boy, I've been lucky up to this point, might want to get out now.
I thought to myself, I could imagine myself being a young cop again. Mm-hmm. You get hurt. Say you get a car accident. You're sitting at a light and boom, you get hit. Yeah. And that's happened to several of our people. You're laying in a hospital bed. You're maybe got a young kid. You just get married. And you don't have a lot of sick time, and you say to yourself, the doctor comes in and says, you're going to be out for a year. Yeah. You think to yourself, I'm going to lose my job. Mm-hmm. I'm going to lose my health care. I can't, my wife's not going to have health care. Yeah. I couldn't imagine. It's hard enough to be injured and hurt to think about that.
I think that this is something we need to look at again.
Absolutely.
For police and fire in the city of Utica. I'm sorry. It's I want to switch to. Do you have something big?
Just a quick follow up on that thing. How it affected public safety in Utica? Wasn't there? I remember talk of a state law that actually firefighters were exempted from that. So if they were hurt on the job, they wouldn't lose their insurance. Do you remember that? Is that true?
I don't. It's been a few years, but I can tell you that there are instances with police and fire that do vary in New York State. Like firefighters are covered under the Taylor Law when it comes to residency. So we've, back when the residency issue comes up, and it comes up every few years, that's one of the things where they're actually written into law that says they do not have to live in the municipality in which they serve.
Okay.
And police are not covered. So it's up to each municipality to sort of say whether you have to live in the city or not.
Right.
And you and I have talked about this. I sort of have opinions on both sides of it. I see the perspective about having to live in the city, know the people you serve, and all that stuff.
But also, great talent doesn't always come from within the borders.
That, and people have to understand that when you work in a small city, it might be different in some of the smaller agencies, the villages. I've never worked there. But when you work in the city, you work in a lot of high crime areas. And if you live in the same municipality, the last thing you'd want, and I think all of us would agree, is to be throwing a ball on your front lawn with your kid and somebody you arrested come driving down the street.
Right.
Now they know where you live. They know where your kid is. You know what shift you work. They know what shift you work, and they know you're not stopping home.
Yeah.
So, now you think about, now my family's vulnerable because you forced me to live here when after, say 5 or 6 years of being here and getting known, I'd maybe move out into the suburbs where I could better protect my family.
Totally get that.
It's not fair.
I want to wrap up with this just quickly. Yesterday, 2 days ago, we had the district attorney, Scott McNamara, in, and he held nothing back in the relationship, it seems, that he has with Mayor Palmieri, and revealed to us that he had to send a cease and desist to the mayor for a couple of reasons. Number one, he was getting in the way at crime scenes. He was coming in and disturbing crime scenes, and he was driving around the city with police lights and driving at a high rate of speed, getting to crime scenes. You want to comment on that?
I'm aware of that. I was there when that all went down. Again, I look at it and say
you're in a tough position though at that point.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And it's and I know Chief Brooks was on here and he talked about some of the things and how he people have come up and said it's Utica, it's politics, but all of this stuff is embarrassing. You have your police chief or your fire chief that's been there forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
And he gets escorted out of City Hall. I mean, you see something like that happen, you say to yourself, "Oh boy, he really did something bad."
Yeah,
he must have done something bad. Like if you were an outsider and you just saw that, he did, and then you find out, well, no, the guy got cancer working at 9/11. And what?
Yeah,
I mean, how could this possibly
what's
be?
happening right now is everyone out there that the mayor has said something to, rubbed the wrong way, been rough with, or whatever, is coming out of the woodwork for Chief Brooks right now. And,
and
this is the moment that makes, I'm now going to tell my story. And it's coming down on this mayor like I've never seen it. I've never seen such a switch. He was at such a level, it seemed, of public opinion, and it has just dumped into the tank like I've never seen happen so quickly.
Yeah, and I'm certainly, I don't want to pile on the guy. And I could say that, I've obviously never been a mayor. And there's tough decisions you have to make when you're the boss. And, I'm sure there's guys that worked for me that maybe weren't always happy with all the decisions I had to make. And I made them for, I thought, the right reasons. But there are times when you have to sort of take the personality out of it on all sides, step back and say, what's the optics of this?
Yes.
And say, is there some other way we could, our doctor doesn't agree with your doctor. Can we go to a third doctor? Yeah. I mean, how could you not work this out? It just doesn't seem possible.
I don't know how you couldn't see this outcome in this situation.
I mean, and like I said, he's a well-respected chief both in the community and within the agency.
And then you have cancer, you have 9/11, you have babies being pulled out of fires.
A veteran,
a Marine.
Absolutely.
What more do you need to say, hey, you might not want to hammer this guy?
And that certainly wouldn't give anybody a free pass to do. But
I agree with that.
It seems what we're hearing here is it's all directly related to his health.
Yeah.
And the man was still working.
It wasn't
like he was home sitting on his couch saying, I can't come in, and then you have to make a move. The man was working.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
And by the way, he's
figure it out.
still getting paid his full salary.
Of course, right.
All right.